Would you say that Fulbright has been one of the United States government's greatest achievements in cultural diplomacy in the 20th century?
I'm tempted to say the greatest.
The greatest,
yeah.
Okay.
In the time when I was in the USIA, which I left in 1985, 50% of the cultural budget went into Fulbright, 50%. And a program which builds up an alumni body which cares, which is ready to get organized and help, is very unusual. A program in cultural affairs in which foreign governments help us pay the cost, as Spain does here, of the Fulbright program, is unique in the world. It's never happened before.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable.
It's absolutely remarkable. It's totally unusual. So that it's something that we have to be very, very proud of.
Okay.
You know how it happened in the Boxer rebellions. You're interested in history, aren't you, Krysten?
Absolutely.
The Boxer rebellions, 6 Western nations, including Japan, crunched the Boxer rebellions in 1906, I think, or 1904. And afterwards, the nations enacted very severe reparations, meaning you must pay us enormous sums of money, but very large sums of money. And the Chinese said, that will kill us, that will kill our budget. We can't survive as a nation if we have to give out that much money every year. And the nation said, nevertheless, 5 of the nations did. The 6th nation was the United States. The Secretary of State was John Hay, formerly personal secretary to Abraham Lincoln. And Hay said, no, we will take enough of the money to pay the damage done to our embassy and to some of the homes that our people lived in. We will take that. The rest of it we will give back to China and put in the Chinese central bank. And then we will set up a binational commission, largely, predominantly Chinese, to decide how we spend this money for bringing Chinese students to the United States.
Okay.
You see, that was the idea. And when Fulbright went to his Rhodes Scholarship from the tiny state of Arkansas in 1924, he said, this is marvelous. This is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Why should it happen to me? It should happen to everybody. Not everybody in my country, everybody in the world. And so he said, how are we going to do this? When he got into the Congress in 1943, he saw the interesting problem. He was looking ahead. He saw that when the war was over, there would be trucks and tanks and uniforms and food and medicine and all kinds of things left behind. It would cost the U.S. government more to bring it back, and then they would throw it away, than to leave it there and sell it to the countries in question. So they sold it to France, to Italy, and to the UK and so forth. And they said, you keep it in the bank, and then we together will decide on how we spend that money for student exchanges. That's how it all began. Okay. And it's gone worldwide, which is really unique in history. There's nothing quite like it.
Right. What common misperception of the United States must we work hardest to overcome?
Today?
Yes, today. In your opinion.
Well, we must work hard to overcome a whole lot. It's hard for me to put the question to rank it. The world is very ambivalent about the United States. There are many people who are inclined to think we're the greatest nation in the world. There are many people who think we're the exploiters, we're the worst nation in the world. Without Karl Marx to help them say that, they just see that things are not the way they should be and could be. I think probably the most important thing that the United States needs to do is to clarify who it is, at which point the people who understand America will be able to say, yes, this is why we understand. And the other people who say, no, America's no good, will not have much of an argument anymore. Now, what does this mean? What must the Americans do? It seems to me we must eliminate some certain very important tendencies. One of them is a racist tendency. We still are a racist nation. That's all there is to it. Whether the race happens to be a race of color, or whether it's anybody who's different from us, or whether it's against women, or whatever it is, we still are a nation which tends to categorize other people as different and therefore bad. Whereas I would like to think a world can categorize other people as different and therefore good, and therefore something that we can work together to make something better. So we've got to get over that kind of thing. I think we have to get over the tendency to think that there are quick fixes for anything. We all know that humans evolve very slowly and can be educated, but they must be carefully educated over time, and we must be very patient. So Americans have to learn patience. They cannot expect that a foreign policy, because you say so, will fix the world tomorrow afternoon. And that applies to the question of warfare. When warfare is seen as an early or an immediate option, then that is something that means that diplomacy is pointless. Diplomacy has one aim and one aim only, to eliminate or avoid or head off conflict. And that's, in fact, why my book is called The First Resort of Kings. Any Spaniard knows, any European knows, that the last resort of kings is war. But Grotius, who wrote that phrase, never got around to telling us what the first resort was. And so, because he wasn't around to consult with, I had to do it myself. So the book is called The First Resort of Kings, which means that when you meet a situation that is different, instead of hiding from it or shooting guns at it, you stick out your hand and say, "Hi, it's good to meet you. Who are you? What's your name?" And hopefully you can make friends. Now, some people don't want to make friends. Well, that's a different question. You have to handle that in a different way. But your first instinct should be, it seems to me, to look for the peaceful solution, and that's what diplomats do. That's what diplomacy is. The last resort, however, is war. You must always be prepared to go to war, necessarily. But when it becomes the first resort, then the world is made nervous by the United States, because we have colossal power. The power to destroy the planet if we want, and we certainly don't want that. So the United States has a very good heart, and we want to do the right thing, but we still have a few things that we have to learn in order to be as understood as we want to be.
Okay. Finally, what can the average American do to help to promote cultural diplomacy around the world?
Well, there's two kinds of average Americans. One, those who stay home in Kansas and never leave, and those who travel. The ones who stay home in Kansas should always look around very carefully and see if there's someone different down the street, and then run down the street and shake hands with them and see what they can find out about that person, and maybe learn something. Invite them home, take them for coffee at Starbucks, do what you want, but get to meet them. The ones that travel should go out not because they want to buy presents for everybody, cheap goods or whatever it is. They should go out because they want to discover what the world is about. Because we live in a very provincial country. Fulbright used to say, it's the most provincial country in the world. Now, that's hard to imagine, the Americans, but it is extraordinarily provincial. All of our concerns are about ourselves. We don't really give a lot of attention to foreign news in our newspapers, and less these days. So that growing up in a state like yours in Texas, you may never have heard of what's really going on in Spain. How would you have learned, you see? So I think the whole idea is to open our eyes to a larger world and to face it without fear. If we can do that, we'll be a better nation.
Great. Well, thank you so very much. I appreciate your remarks. Good luck with the rest of your trip.
Thank you, Krysten. You've been a good audience.
Thank you very much.